From 17 once again. This is my Metro Last Light Ranger Hardcore Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Chapter 7, Torchlight. It has absolutely nothing to do with like grindy, dungeon crawling, loot based games, unfortunately. But still an interesting level, and it's dark as balls again, so my apologies once more. And I can't quite remember this one. I believe we're just going to be moving through... Is it the spiders stuff? I can't quite remember. But Metro is such an interesting game because... Oh, come on, man. Fucking kids, all the time. Where was I? Metro. It's fascinating because I assume it was inspired by Stalker, which is a PC game which I think is open worldy, kind of like Oblivion, but set in a post-apocalyptic Russia or Chernobyl, and screams, nothing but screams, and it's such an interesting aesthetic, it's such an interesting timeline, and I'm wishing for cars, man. Just fucking splatter these children so they learn not to play on the fucking road. Jesus, I'd make such a fantastic parent. But I think they do really well what they set out to do. Like, the level design is great, the levels themselves look great, I think the engine they've got is fantastic, but at the same time I would like to see the studio do something different with it. Because Metros are great, and I like them a lot, I look forward to them, but they've got really good tech, they've got unusual gameplay mechanics every so often, an unusual progression through their games, which makes me think that they could do so much more if given the opportunity or given the creative chance. And not a lot of games can say that, because we're so annualized at this moment in time. Before the next generation drops in October and November and whenever it's going to come to fruition, until that moment we're so just sequel orientated, it's unbelievable. So we've got into this rut where all it is at this moment in time is this expectation of the exact same kind of gameplay. And I think that's why I'm not looking forward to anything until Splinter Cell. And the only reason I'm looking forward to Splinter Cell is because they're promising they're going back to stealth. And me and that series go back a very long way. Like, me and Splinter Cell have had a storied history. Like, I was a Nintendo fanboy, get me, when I was in secondary school. And I was in love with the GameCube, you know. I got Luigi's Mansion at launch. I fucking loved that game. I actually beat the highest score submitted to Games Master in the first week of playing that game, but I was too retarded on how to submit it, and then probably a week later somebody had already found a really cool way to do it, because I was young at the time. But loved Luigi's Mansion, you know, loved Super Smash Bros. Melee, loved my GameCube, and even though there was hardly any games for it, and the Xbox came out at a very similar time, because Microsoft were getting into the console race. This sequence right here, guys, you don't have to shoot the spiders, I don't think. You can just kind of chill out and save your ammo. I'm not 100% sure. You'll see in the video what I decide to do. But you can save your ammo. And this is really good practice of turning your light on and turning your light off and stuff like that. Managing your light support, light resource is what I wanted to say. But Microsoft were first coming out, and what happened is we were in science. So in my science class at secondary school, there was me and 3 other guys for a while, and then it became 2 other guys, because one of them, I think he moved sets or something like that. So on the one hand, you had me, who was this massive Nintendo fanboy. On the other hand, you had this guy who was a massive Sony fanboy, because he was obsessed with Metal Gear Solid. He took a week off school to camp out to buy Metal Gear Solid 2 on release. I think he was the only person there with a tent. It's fantastic stuff. And the other guy was getting into consoles. I think he was a PC dude. He was getting into consoles, and he was looking at the Xboxes, you know. On paper, it had the most power. It had a lot of things going for it. And he didn't know which one to buy, so we used to tease him a little bit. Oh, by the way, if you do not kill this, you will get a negative point against Pavel, I believe. If you do not save him, you will not get a positive point there. You'll notice the screen flashes and things. But what we used to do is, because I've always drawn ever since being a little kid. You know, I like to draw. I'm pretty talented at it. So we used to draw Bill Gates and the Xbox. And because the Xbox was very big compared to, you know, the revamped version of the PS2, the GameCube was tiny compared to the Xbox. The Xbox was this fucking huge thing with this really huge pad and this really pompous, rich douchebag as its figurehead, Bill Gates. And we used to draw them. And we used to draw Bill and Xboxes, and the Xboxes would always be, you know, the size of a small car. They would look like something from Star Trek, and we would put them in comic situations, you know, like Bill Gates fucking the disk drive of the Xbox, and the Xbox plugging into a building and powering New York City Centre bit where there's all the lights and the TVs. We would do all sorts of stupid stuff. Like just drawing these ridiculous pictures and mocking Microsoft and mocking the Xbox, because it was this huge console that had not proved its worth, that came out with a game called Halo, which I thought was shit. You know, I thought Perfect Dark was better. I still do, and I know a lot of people disagree with me because Halo's massive now. But at the time, it was what kind of sold the console. So I used to just mock the tits off that machine. I used to fucking hate it. Absolutely hate it. I hated the pad. I hated the games. Like, there was nothing redeemable about that console whatsoever. And so much so, we had a lot of fun in science, drawing shit and being silly and all that great stuff. But now that you have the ridiculous backstory, we move on to why I got into Splinter Cell. So at the time, I had a PS2 and a GameCube. And I loved Metal Gear. I've always loved Metal Gear. A friend got me into it, loved it to death. Splinter Cell was coming out, and it was kind of the competitor to the throne, because Siphon Filter just didn't stand a chance, and there weren't that many stealth games back then. So there was the usual, you know, dissidence towards this new game claiming to be better than Metal Gear Solid. And it was an Xbox exclusive at first. I think it was mentioned to be kind of this flagship for Xbox, even though it ended up coming out on the PS2 and on the GameCube and on a few other systems. But at the time, it was associated with Xbox because it even had the same fucking colour scheme. So my friends latched onto that to mock that, and I was kind of on the fence. I was like, well, yeah, it looks ridiculous. It's this, you know, greying 56-year-old man doing the splits in a corridor, shooting lights out and stuff with guns that aren't accurate. But it looks intriguing because I really like stealth games. And I ended up getting it for the GameCube. And I got it for the PS2. And I've played every single game since then. And I've been in love with that series. And I even liked Conviction. I liked what it tried to do. I just don't think it made for the best Splinter Cell game. And I'm super stoked for the prospect of a new Splinter Cell, as long as it goes back to those trademarked things that we enjoyed, you know. But yeah, the glory days of excitement and competitiveness with consoles that didn't range directly on the power of the machine. Like, we were mocking the financer at that point. You don't really get too much of that at this stage, unless it's Korea fanboys just trolling for the sake of it. But back in the day, it used to be a lot more fun, I found, the console wars, because it didn't have this big internet platform of idiots that like to be contrarians and argue any fucking fact. But such is the culture that we live in. But there's a couple minutes left on this, and as you can see, all we've been doing here, guys, is making sure that you've got your torch on to stun the spiders and shooting them with a shotgun if it doesn't stun them. Because every so often they will not be flinching from your light. It's kind of weird. Don't know if it's the difficulty, I don't know what it is, but they will eventually get close enough to attack you if you're not careful. And this moment here, you want to just stick up Pavel's ass. There will be spiders getting really close to you, but you can completely ignore them usually because they'll not go close enough to touch Pavel, so you should be fine. And this is a pretty long level, but it's only long because it's slow and it's kind of gantly. It's not a swift process moving through these tunnels. And I think after this we're going to be moving into another city area, another underground settlement. But there's about 3 minutes left of the video, so I'm going to go on to my sound issues. Anyone who's followed the channel, anybody who's, you know, checked on Twitter and things, knows that my headset broke a couple of weeks back. It's been like 3 weeks now, and I haven't replaced it, even though I am due a replacement, mainly because the weather is incredibly bad, and you know, I've got to carry this box on a bus into my local town to go and get it swapped. And a lot of people are probably thinking, well, that's just laziness, and for the most it kind of is, but like, I don't do well in this kind of weather, folks. I'm I'm covered in sweat at this moment in time. It is incredibly uncomfortable. It's just not a fun time. And all I want to do is just veg, which is a statement that Hobo Jesus taught me, which I didn't know, which apparently is just vegging out, where you just like kind of lay all fat on food or something. But I'm doing it with the inability to cool down. And that is all that I've been wanting to do recently. So it's one of those things where by the time I've finished, doing videos for YouTube, looking for jobs, checking the application forms and stuff like that, doing my standard routines, half the day is gone. And, I'm seeing my girlfriend occasionally and things like that. So I'm procrastinating is the thing to say. Oh, by the way, folks, this moment here, if you bomb it through this zone and you know where you're going, you can get through it without any of the spiders spawning and being a trouble, and you can immediately get to the thing you have to press, turn on the lights, and you don't have to fuck about with the stupid spiders going in all the holes in the walls, because they're a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. So what has happened is, I'm stuck now without a headset, which means that about 10 o'clock at night, I can't do what I always do, which is a case of if there's anything I need to play or I need to record, I'll start recording and I'll have my headset hooked up to my PC and I'll be watching, streams, I'll be watching YouTube, I'll be watching films, I'll be watching series, podcasts, you name it, that kind of stuff. But there's been a double whammy now because the internet has just died, and our internet now is essentially shit internet all the time. There's no fluctuations anymore. It's just fucking abysmal. It's appalling. I can't stream on it. I can't watch anything on it. I was playing Dark Souls earlier. I had to turn it off because it wasn't fair on the people I was fighting. It just was stupid. It was completely stupid. And, you add it all together and it's just really bumming me out. But that is the end of the video, folks. Thanks for watching, and you take care now.